He's never fought us. Not us united.
My favorite moment in the entire... Maybe I should complicate this before I start speaking here. Welcome to Comics League Indie Wednesday. I'm Jared, and today we are talking about BRZRKR Volume 2. Now, you may be wondering, as a little refresher, BRZRKR is the comic book written by Keanue Reeves about an immortal warrior named B, who essentially... He's like a mixture of Wolverine and the Punisher, honestly, if that's that'd be like the best way I would characterize him, because he heals from literally anything, like literally anything, and has survived for millennia since the dawn of man. So it's actually really cool, and he goes on a couple of special operations with as part of the U.S. military. It's actually really cool. So we covered Volume 1 a little while ago. I'll put the link up there wherever YouTube decides to put it, so you guys can get caught up on the story. So we're talking about Volume 2 because Volume 2 finally came out, and I'm going to review it for you guys. So again, this is written by Keanu Reeves with art by Matt Kindt and Ron Garney. And let's get into the story. So the story opens up, we have B in a pod, but then we also cut into, as you remember, Volume 1 ended with B going to his... So B essentially is working with this scientist who's trying to understand his powers. So he goes to the scientist's house and basically like explains a lot about his background. And we see like flashes to how he describes like the evolution of music. But then we also see they basically hook him up to these machines because his power that he like exudes, it's called BRZRKR, and it's kind of like think about it. So it's very similar to, in the New 52, Superman had this solar flare power where he could expel all the solar radiation in his body and have like a massive blast. It's kind of like that. So then we go back 80,000 years. We see B hanging out with this bear. Well, actually hanging out in the wild. He's fighting a bear. He saves a woman. He mates with her, and it shows throughout history. It actually shows him throughout history how he's never been able to find love because, being immortal, he mates with someone, maybe falls in love. If they die, he goes on. That's the curse of immortality. And is that, yeah, it sounds cool to be able to live forever, but you're constantly surrounded by death. Even if you're not a warrior, everyone around you is going to wither and die, and you're just going to stay the way you are. It's kind of cool. We see him like ancient Asia, ancient Rome. We see him through all of the special times in history. We see him as a samurai. Then he expels his power, and that's kind of what that looks like. It's kind of like Dr. Manhattan mixed solar flare power. So then we get he goes off on a special operation because, remember, he's like working with the U.S. military. He and this other dude essentially, what I love is that they're flying into a target, and what B essentially does is he doesn't wait for the helicopter to land. He just jumps out of the helicopter. He's like, "Oh, screw this," and then he just lands because he heals from anything, so it doesn't really matter. There will be fall damage, but it just heals immediately. And we see they're in the middle of a firefight. These soldiers, the U.S. Army soldiers, are supposed to retrieve this artifact. They get outside, and he's like lifting a tank and throwing it. Someone fires an RPG at him. He grabs the rocket, turns around, just throws it right back at the dude. That's why I love this book, because it's such like a really badass action movie. Then B and his partner get into a helicopter and take off, but then is shot down by enemy SAMs. And they basically go into a wilderness survival mode. And then B essentially has a flashback to like all of his times with, like, let's say with the Nordic tribes, and it's like you're essentially seeing him throughout history, and he even indicates I've been in this wood before many years ago, and it sees him like hanging out with the wolves. He even wards them off because he's kind of one of them. We see B through again more action scenes of him throughout all these battles. He essentially says I got all these battle awards throughout history, but all I wanted was to essentially all I wanted was anonymity. I didn't want any recognition or anything. I just wanted anonymity. It's really cool. We see him with like the Romans. We see him with the Gauls. We see him with the samurai. It's actually really cool seeing this one dude throughout history, throughout all the different battles, because this was essentially what X-Men Origins Wolverine should have been. Because can you imagine if we got in X-Men Origins, it wasn't like it was just those short, like it was just that short opening sequence where it's just Wolverine fighting through history. That'd be so dope, because that's basically what this is. And so they're extracted, and they find this artifact. The artifact will be revealed later in this volume, so stay tuned. So we get B. He's hooked up to all these machines more, and they're still studying the energy output that he expels. And again, we see this artifact has been passed down throughout generations to generations, throughout all the way to like 760 BC. It keeps going back in time, like back, and then it turns out. So when B was like essentially at 2300 BC, B was in a battle and his hand got cut off. Once again, it's not going to affect him because it heals, but the hand was saved as kind of a good luck token. And then what was in that artifact was just essentially all that was left, which was like a finger. And it's because he's become kind of a cult figure in that cults have risen up to worship this dude because he's practically immortal, and he doesn't like it. He's like, I can't stand this. So then they show brain scans of him, and they're seeing how he like transcends time and space. Then we see him fight and kill a saber-toothed tiger, which is pretty dope. It's some really cool stuff. We see him meditating. He actually goes because the archaeologist he's talking to goes, some cultures used to be able to like it was theorized that they had telepathy, and it's cut to Beast hanging out with those cultures, and they're talking telepathically. He goes, did they ever say anything to you? And he went, not out loud. Love it. Then we see like the atom bomb going off, or essentially a bomb going off. Then we see again, we're going throughout history, and what we're seeing right now is that to study his so you remember if like you've seen those old movies and the government's testing nuclear bombs, and that's kind of what they're doing here. What I mean is that they have him in this box essentially, and they're trying to like feed him power to see how much he could take, and if he explodes, they're going to like be inside their own little doomsday bunkers, if you will. So that's what they're studying, and it goes off and it like destroys everyone, and then but the scientist is knocked out. Then like the ground opens up and like explodes, and then the scientist is put in like a little pod because she's not dead. Some of the energy went into her, and what the implication is that if you're exposed to B's energy, you become this immortal being. And that's kind of implied what happened when B was born, because remember, his mother wanted a child, his father wanted an heir. Actually, they wanted a weapon, and she went into this cave, B's mother, and she was exposed to this energy, and then B was born, and he couldn't die. And that's by implication what happened all those years ago. And then we see like, it's tracking throughout history. We're seeing all this energy throughout B's history, and then we find essentially whenever he like explodes, he travels through time. Essentially, I believe that's what it's implying. And then we see he's essentially in the beginning, he's trying to find his father, and by father, whoever gave him the powers. Then we see the scientist Diana that was working with B. She's essentially been hooked up to machines, and the implication is that in Volume 3, she's going to be used to hunt down and control V because he also escaped. So that's volume 2. I really like this. This is one of my favorite volumes so far, and I'm really enjoying the series because, let me put it this way, it's something that it's a very unique idea, and that's partly why I love these Indie Wednesday videos, because I'm exposed to all these different books that I wouldn't be exposed to otherwise. But it's also like, I could very well see this being a pretty badass action movie, and reportedly Keanu Reeves is trying to get this to work at Netflix, and I think it would be super cool. And another thing I really like is how they use history in the book, because they show him throughout history. They show the effect that he had on human history, like with the cultists and stuff. And then we see like him using those powers to help the military, but he's like a total badass. He's like Superman. He's like throwing tanks, throwing RPGs back at the shooters. It's so cool. But that's Berserker Volume 2. I'll do Volume 3 as soon as it comes out. And this is definitely going to be a recurring series that I'm going to cover on the show, because this is so much fun. I love it, and I get a good response from you guys whenever I cover it. So on that note, we're going to end it there. Remember that this Saturday we're going to be talking about Black Adam at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I say 10:30. That's when we're estimating that we're going to be we're going to be out of the movie, because I'm going to the movie and then coming back here to stream. So we'll, at some point in the evening, we will be streaming and talking about Black Adam. And then Sunday, I'm going to be on Tevia's stream talking about the Super Sons movie. I'm so pumped for that. And then also that evening, we're going to have the Snyderverse trivia night. So be on the lookout for that. Stay heroic, everyone, and I will see you in the next review. Bye-bye, everyone.